When you think of the best quarterback from Mississippi State, you likely immediately think of Dak Prescott. However, the quarterback that followed him was just as good and maybe even better for the Bulldogs. Nick Fitzgerald owns the most school records in Bulldogs history. He set college football and SEC records during his time at Mississippi State. So, what happened to his career after he left? Well, let's go take a look. Before we get to today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to the channel. If you love college football content like this, then this is definitely the place for you. Also, is there another college football player you'd like to see a video on? Drop a comment and it very well could be my next video. Now, Nick Fitzgerald was actually born in Germany. His father Derek was in the military, and after living in Germany, his family lived in Florida and Illinois before ultimately settling down in Savannah, Georgia, when Nick was about 8 years old. Shortly after, Nick attended his first Georgia Bulldogs game, and that's when he fell in love with Georgia and football. Nick and his dad went to a number of games while he was growing up. He once got an autographed picture with former Georgia quarterback Matthew Stafford, and even attended former longtime Georgia coach Mark Wright's two-day camp when he was about 9. Growing up, that was the only school that Nick envisioned playing college football at. When it came time to get recruited, I went to every Georgia camp I could, and it would have been awesome, and I would have loved it. They just didn't want me. At the time, there was no, oh, poor me. It was just, move on. I knew I could play quarterback in college, and Dan Mullen and Mississippi State gave me that opportunity. I'm really happy I came here, and obviously it worked out well because this is the best fit for me by far. Charles Pledger, a former Georgia DB from 1990 to 1993, is Nick's father's cousin, so he did everything he could to try to make Georgia aware of Nick Fitzgerald. His former teammate Nick Bobo was the current offensive coordinator at Georgia. Charles did everything to try and bring attention to his nephew, but the Bulldogs didn't have any interest in him. However, it sadly made sense why Georgia would want nothing to do with Nick. Now, Nick Fitzgerald played quarterback only one season while at Richmond High School. He led his team to a 10-2 record, but he wasn't lining up the stat sheet by any means. They ran the triple option in high school, and Nick attempted only 76 passes that season, and he completed only 43% of them. He was ranked the 40th overall dual-threat quarterback in the country per the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings. Now, Pledger knew that Nick wouldn't excite anyone at the quarterback position, but he said that he was willing to play anywhere that was asked of him. I said, guys, if it's not a quarterback, he can be a tight end. He can be a hybrid receiver. I thought he definitely could create some mismatches for defenses. I said, he's an athlete, and I think you're overlooking the fact that he's a smart kid and very athletic. But nobody really looked at him. Fitzgerald received 2 FBS offers to play quarterback. One came from Middle Tennessee State, a Group of 5 program. The other, Mississippi State. Fitzgerald accepted Mississippi State's offer and immediately shut down his recruiting. In the summer of 2013, Lyman Guy, then the head football coach for Richmond High School, brought some of his players to a 7-on-7 camp held at the University of Georgia. While they were there, Guy said that the play of Fitzgerald caught Georgia head coach Mark Wright's eye. Wright apparently was unaware of Nick's interest in attending Georgia, even though he'd been trying to get his name out there for years. By the time Wright took notice of Fitzgerald, he had already committed to play for Mississippi State, and Guy said that Fitzgerald is not the type of guy to turn his back once he's made a decision. In 2014, Nick Fitzgerald took a redshirt season. In 2015, he was named the backup quarterback to Dak Prescott. Nick saw limited action as he completed 11 of 14 passes for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, while adding 100 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground in garbage time. Dak entered the NFL draft that offseason, and Nick Fitzgerald became the starting quarterback for the Bulldogs. And he started one of the greatest runs we've seen from a quarterback in the history of the SEC. He started all 13 games for the Bulldogs that season and broke 9 school records. He broke 4 single-season records and 5 single-game records. He set a school record with the most rushing yards by a quarterback with just under 1,400 yards, and the most 100-yard rushing games in a season with 8, something a Mississippi State running back had never done. Fitzgerald led the SEC in total offensive yards with 3,800 and rushing touchdowns with 16. His 8 games of 100-plus rushing yards also led the SEC. Nick Fitzgerald finished the season with 2,400 passing yards and 21 passing touchdowns. He also added 1,400 yards on the ground with 16 rushing touchdowns. Against Stanford, he totaled over 530 combined yards and 7 total touchdowns, becoming only the second player ever in SEC history to accomplish that feat. He was also the only quarterback in the SEC to have 7 touchdowns in a game all season. Following that performance, he led Mississippi State to an upset victory over number 4 Texas A&M. Fitzgerald had nearly 400 yards of total offense and had 4 total touchdowns. He became the third SEC quarterback in the last 20 years to pass for over 200 yards and rush for over 175 yards in a game, joining Heisman winners Johnny Manziel and Cam Newton. In the season finale against Ole Miss, Fitzgerald set Egg Bowl records, along with 3 Mississippi State records as well. He finished with 258 rushing yards, the most ever in a game in Bulldog history. He rushed in 2 touchdowns as well, and threw 3 touchdown passes. In 2018, Nick's numbers took a bit of a hit, but he was still solid for the Bulldogs. He threw for 1,800 yards with 15 touchdown passes to go along with 1,000 rushing yards and 14 rushing touchdowns. Fitzgerald had 6 games in which he had at least 100 passing yards and 100 rushing yards, the second most in the country behind Lamar Jackson. He was one of only 3 quarterbacks in the nation to throw for at least 1,700 yards and rush for over 900 yards. He was selected as a finalist for the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award and was a semifinalist for the Maxwell Award and the Davey O'Brien Award. Then in the 2018 Egg Bowl, Fitzgerald suffered a devastating injury. He was diagnosed with a dislocated ankle, and just like that, his season was over. He entered the game only 230 passing yards and 32 rushing yards away from becoming the first player in SEC history with multiple seasons of 2,000 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards. Nick spent the offseason rehabbing and was good to go for the 2018 season. Yet again, he put up some very impressive numbers. He threw for 1,800 yards with 16 passing touchdowns to go along with 1,100 rushing yards and 13 rushing touchdowns. He had 5 games with at least 100 rushing yards and 100 passing yards, tied for the most in the FBS. He was also one of 3 quarterbacks, along with Heisman Trophy winner Kyler Murray, to throw for 1,700 yards and rush for over 1,000 yards. Nick Fitzgerald finished his Bulldogs career with 6,400 passing yards, the 3rd most in program history. His 55 passing touchdowns are the 2nd most. His 3,600 rushing yards are the 2nd most in program history, but the most ever by a quarterback. His 46 rushing touchdowns are the most by any player in Mississippi State history, and the 4th most in SEC history. He left school as the SEC's all-time leading rusher at quarterback. Fitzgerald totaled 21 individual 100-yard rushing games, the most in school history and the most by a quarterback in SEC history. He rushed for multiple touchdowns in a game 17 times, the most in the SEC over the last 20 years. He had 10 games in which he rushed for at least 2 touchdowns, rushed for at least 100 yards, and threw a touchdown pass, the most in FBS history, going back to at least 2000. Fitzgerald went undrafted in the 2019 NFL Draft, which didn't come as too much of a surprise. However, the Buccaneers signed him as an undrafted free agent, as they envisioned him to be a Taysom Hill type of role player for the team. They still wanted to try him out at quarterback, but the team and Fitzgerald were open to trying him out all over the field to see where he could potentially help them. He didn't make the 53-man roster, but he was added to the practice squad to begin the season. In October of 2019, he was released. He worked out for the Houston Texans and the Denver Broncos, but nothing came out of it. In January of 2020, Fitzgerald joined the St. Louis Battlehawks of the XFL, but the XFL canceled their season due to COVID, and he was out of a job. In a recent interview with the Mississippi State-affiliated SB Nation website, Nick opened up about what he's currently up to now. He said that he's going to be in the Spring League playing quarterback for the Sea Lions. He says that the end goal is absolutely to get back into the NFL. He said that while he was in Tampa, they had him playing all kinds of different positions. He said that he learned how to play tight end, kickoff return, punt return, and all kinds of other positions. In regards to being a quarterback, he said he's just got to get better and better at processing information with reads and all that kind of stuff. He said he's open to anything and whatever is needed out of him in order to get back into the NFL. He just wants a fair shot. So what do you remember most about Nick Fitzgerald and his time in Mississippi State? Where would you rank him in regards to college quarterbacks we've seen over the last decade? In my opinion, he's definitely one of the most underrated and forgotten quarterbacks of the last few years, which is truly a shame because the numbers he was putting up were truly incredible. Well, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so you never miss another video. If you love college football content, then this is definitely the place for you. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.